Alright, what's up, guys? This is the video for the inaugural UWYO Pokemon Draft League. I am Jacob, and joining me is...
Hey guys, I'm Valentine, here to do some draft analysis with you guys.
Yeah, we're just going to basically run through each team, kind of point out some strong points, some weak points, and give them a letter grade at the end of the day. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with ANA, the Anarchist Arcanines. So let's see. Do you want me to lead off, Val?
Yeah, go for it.
So one thing I really like about this team is I think it has a really strong core in Starmie, Arcanine, and Venusaur. You're going to be able to bring it to pretty much any battle, and it is a bit more of a flexible core than you'll see from some other teams we have, because Starmie is one of these users, and you can run a lot of different sets on Arcanine, and Starmie can run so many different offensive moves. It's going to put on a lot of pressure. Also with the team, I think it's one of the more flexible teams in the kind of sets they can run. You got like Cresselia, Gliscor, Clefable, and Electros can all run a lot of really different sets and have all different moves and use a lot of different strategies. So I think that's one going to be a very strong team. I don't think it's super strong in any one department. It is leaning towards more offensive, but then it also has like the defensive mons like Cresselia, Gliscor, Fable, and Mega Venusaur. So I like this team a lot. My personal grade for this, I gave it a B. Very well rounded. Nothing too overly exciting though.
Yeah, I look at this team and I actually see like a really, really defensive core. Look at Mega Venu, Clefable, Gliscor, Cresselia, and even Arcanine with its Intimidate, and that all just sounds really hard to punch through. If you have good coverage for Mega Venusaur, maybe you don't have good coverage for Cresselia, and then all of a sudden it starts getting kind of tough to take out both of those. One thing I will say is that this team has only two Stealth Rockers. They're both good Stealth Rockers. Clefable and Gliscor both really excel at setting hazards, but it also only has two removers in Gliscor and Starmie, both also really good removers, but you won't always want to run Defog and Stealth Rocks on Gliscor, so it kind of makes it obvious that Starmie has to come to most games and that it'll generally be running a Rapid Spin set, which is kind of a shame since it's the Zmon on this team. But other than that, I agree. I think it's pretty balanced. I think its speed tiers are pretty bad. Like you have to go like if you're looking at Rapidash as your fast mon, that's not great since it's low tier. Delphox and Starmie are also okay in speed, but nothing that like stands out as like, oh, I need to run really high speed. And so what we'll see is probably a lot of high speed mons will get to run Adamant or Modest to against this team, which will really make it harder for the defensive mons to do their job.
Fair enough. What would you assign as the letter grade if you were to?
I gave this team a B plus. I think the defensive core is just going to win it a lot of games. A lot of teams just won't be able to punch through it.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's move on to BBB, the Blacksburg Breloons. This is my boy Schnarfy coming at us from Virginia Tech. I know he's decently experienced. Me and him have done a lot of battles in the past, and he's super excited to be in this league. Some notes I have on this team is...
Lando T. Really strong mons. Really hard to deal with. Hard to prep for. I think there's only two rockers on this team with Bronzong and Lando T. Lando T doesn't always want to run rocks, especially as a Zmon, so I think we'll see a lot of Bronzong coming, which isn't a bad thing, but there might be some teams that can take advantage of that.
Yeah, I also pointed out that in terms of like speed tiers, this team has nothing that's like crazy fast outside maybe like Mega Alakazam's pretty fast, but its Trick Room option, if he does decide to bring the Bronzong, is very strong in my opinion, with the Snorlax and then a bunch of mons that are just like way below average speed with Breloom, Tapu Fini, Dragalge. It's going to be really interesting to see how teams prep to face BBB.
Yeah, I agree. I think Trick Room is an interesting idea for this team. I hadn't considered it initially just because of the Mega Zam and some of the mid-tier speed mons, but yeah, I can definitely see that pulling out some surprise wins with a Trick Room variant. I will say, like you said, the speed tier is pretty bad. Jumping from 150 to 104 on your speed tiers and that 104 is from Meowstick,
And
which
that's confusing
probably won't
prankster
come very
anyway.
often. Yeah, so that's not a great speed tier, especially since Megazam can't be scarfed. So this team will have a very hard time outspeeding any kind of scarfer.
One thing I also noticed is like, without that Trick Room variant, um, this team does not have that strong of like I would say like really strong wands in terms of like you can bring to every battle and they're going to be able to perform well as like having that strong core. Because once you get out of like Lando T, Finny, Alakazam, Snorlax, you can't really. There's not really like a bread and butter core he can bring for this like a balance versus balance squad. He's gonna have to try to find ways to make Meowstick work and make uh, Drapion work and stuff like that in teams you wouldn't normally see them work as well in.
Yeah, I agree. I will say that the ice weakness that Breloom and Lando T share is really nicely covered by Feeny Snorlax.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some nice synergy there. I don't know. Overall, I don't really like the Shedinja pick. I think it's just going to die to Stealth Rocks every game. I'm not a huge Breloom fan. I think it's too high. It's too high tiered in the draft. I would see it more as a tier 3 than a tier 2, but I know Breloom can put in work sometimes, so maybe I'm wrong. But overall, I do think this team is fairly solid.
No, I'm on the train. I actually really like this team. I like the different options he has, and I like the different things he can do. It's just going to be a matter of how well he preps each week. So the grade I gave it, I actually gave this team an A minus.
I gave it a B plus, so
Okay,
pretty close.
pretty close. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to BRD, the
This is
Belgium
my team.
Midtjylland. This is Valentine's team. Val, you want to say your initial thoughts of what you're thinking while you're drafting before I step in and say what
So
I say?
going into this, I didn't have much prep, and then the day we did the draft, I was at a huge exam the next day, so I was studying pretty hard, and then I got sniped second round. Um, so that kind of threw everything up in the air, but I think I kind of pulled out a draft that I really like. I've got a few mons on here that I am looking forward to using, and a few mons on here that I know will be good no matter what. Um, so I'm fairly happy with my draft. I've looking at it, I've found a few holes, but overall, I didn't feel too bad about it.
Okay. And so notes I kind of have on it is out of all the teams, yours is going to be the best, or I guess for us, the worst to deal with in terms of hazards. You got the best, in my opinion, the best sticky web user in the game in Araquanid. And you just have so many different ways of keeping up rocks and then putting mons to sleep, or just like having hail up with just 100% accurate blizzard with a really fast mon. It's just gonna be really scary to deal with and prep for your team, especially because I don't like when I'm helping my friend Daniel Sharfy, right, prepare for your team week one, and I'm looking at your team and I'm just like, yeah, I have no idea what the 6 mons you're gonna bring are, and compared to like I said, almost every other team in the league, you have the not like you don't have like a mystery on your team, but you have a lot of mons that are going to be able to perform well in the draft league, and it's going to really show just how good you are at mons. I think in the first couple weeks, and people are going to see his team as a threat.
Yeah, something I always look for is I don't like having a really top heavy team, so I have a lot less tier ones than most
Mm-hmm.
people,
Oh yeah,
but I also have a lot more tier three and tier fours. So I do like the idea that all of my mons can come every week and provide their niche or their use in that week. So huge fan of Araquanid though. I'm really excited to try out Araquanid
yeah.
with the sticky webs.
I'm really interested to see if against certain teams if you can make Trick Room work as well. You have a very strong Trick Room core, in my opinion. It's going to be interested to see how you make Mega Absol work. But regarding like your draft, I think you and Hank are pretty much showing people that did not go 3 tier 1s, if I'm correct. Uh,
Yeah, that may
Wait,
be right.
actually,
I know a lot of people are
Arctic and
running.
Frostford did not pick any tier 1s. I didn't notice that. Anyway,
Interesting.
all right. Yeah, I gave your team an A minus. The reason I gave an A minus is because I think just something I value, as you'll see in my team later, is I really value a lot of offensive strength and bringing those threats on. And I think you have a lot of threats, but it just doesn't fit my criteria for necessarily what I look for in a straight up A. So
That's fair. Yeah, I like my speed tiers, but I don't know if I have any standout breakers, which is the one thing I would say about my team. Besides maybe like a Ban
Tornadoes,
Tyrantrum or Z move Tornadoes, Z
yeah,
move Thunderous. But
Thunderous, yeah.
yeah, okay. I'm not gonna rate my own team
All right, fair
because,
enough. All right, now,
but
next we're moving on to CCS, the Charleston Charizards. This is one of those other teams that only has one tier one, going with, again, not a tier one mega. And yeah, you want to lead us off?
yeah. So the biggest issue I have with this team is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Nidoking is the only stealth rocker. Unless no, Chestnut gets rocks
Chestnut
too.
gets rocks, yeah.
Okay, so Nidoking does not want to run rocks, at least not all the time, because especially here, he's going to need to use it as a sheer force breaker.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that leaves a lot of the burden on Chestnut to be like a rock spike set or something like that every week. And Chestnut in draft, I'm not a huge fan just because of that 4 times weakness. It just dies to every defogger
Hmm.
since a lot of defoggers are flying types.
One thing that I
So
did notice, like regarding that, is he has a lot of defog users. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if there was weeks he straight up just said, "I'm just not going to deal with hazards.
yeah,
Bring
his team is
defog on like two
also
mons."
yeah his team is also mildly weak to hazards, having a
Oh
Charizard
yeah,
and the Gyarados. So I could see that would make sense since he has 4 defoggers and they're good defoggers. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that.
Um, so one thing that I noticed about this team is I just don't understand really how it works. I feel like there's a lot of just mixed matching. He has a lot of the proponents where he can just bring pretty much any of his mons out any week, but at the same time, like I feel like when he's bringing them on, it's kind of just like trading in and out. I don't see the synergy right now. Like I don't see the synergy between his mons and like what plans he's trying to execute besides maybe setting up like Scizor or Gyarados for a sweep. Um, and he didn't even make Gyarados a Z user, which I was looking at Gyarados in my draft personally because I think Gyarados is one of the best Z users in the game. If you get like a Dragonite or two up, you can run Z Fly or Z Water and just destroy anyone.
Yeah, that's one of the notes that I had. Is I think Z Charizard is more of a meme, an actual Z pick. I think Charizard shouldn't come the majority of weeks, and I think that anytime it does come, you probably want Z Gengar over Z Charizard.
Yeah,
So
I
I would
agree.
have liked to see that Z move maybe more on the Gyarados or maybe even the Hydreigon as an option. I will say this team is very ice weak. I think
Oh
the
yeah,
only 2 ice resistances are his 2 steel types and Scissor and Doublade. So any kind of fire coverage on an fire ice coverage will be really really
yeah.
effective. I guess Lapras is
I
also
guess
an ice
Lapras too.
resist,
Yeah.
but you won't really see Lapras that often.
Yeah, we'll see. I
Um,
mean, I hope he can make it work personally. This is actually the lowest team I graded. I gave it a C. But again, I think with some trades, he can make things work. I just don't see how. I just don't see the plan with this team, and hopefully he proves me wrong.
yeah, I also gave this team a C. I don't see that one standout that is going to make me scared to build against this team.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to OGP. So this is
Uh,
Christian's team. As many people saw in the draft, this is the Sand team, the Sand
yeah,
team.
very very sand team.
Um,
This team has 8 stealth rockers. Um,
oh my gosh.
that means yeah. So I think this team will should always have hazards up,
Mm-hmm.
and especially with Excadrill and 3 good defoggers, uh, probably won't. It'll probably be only on one side. I think sand can always give you the win. I think
Yeah.
a an adamant drill in sand or a band drill in sand can just sweep the opponent's 4 mons if they don't have a check. Um, but that's kind of where the good things end, in my opinion, on this team. I think this
Completely
team is
agree.
one of the 2 teams that mono loses to Mamoswine.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
Everything that isn't weak to ground
Oh.
dies to an ice type move or stealth rocks in the case of Moltres. So that's kind of rough. A lot of ground ice weaknesses, a lot of 4 times weaknesses on this team with Mega Sceptile, Landorus, Magnezone,
Hmm.
and Moltres. So and Escavalier. So I mean they're not and Tyranitar. Okay, wow. They're not all weak to the same thing, but a lot of 4 times weak mons. So it'll be his team will be easy to break, and I think it's all just going to come down to is the sand going to be enough to make this team viable.
Yeah, basically what I said is if he can snowball games and get rid of like certain mons that just threaten his team ridiculously hard, he can just run away with games and just straight up win. But I think in terms of prepping for teams, his team may be the easiest to prep for in the league.
I think so. I think you pack some ice moves, you pack some ground moves, and a check to Excadrill in the sand.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know. Again, this is another team where I think with some trades can go from being, well, I rated a C plus to going into at least upper Bs.
Yeah, this team was harder to rate. I feel like it's instead of being like overall centered on something, it has some really strong parts and some incredibly weak parts. So I gave this a C overall. I just think that in draft, people will prep for your strong parts and abuse your weak points, and it's harder to shore up weaknesses than it is to abuse strengths.
Yep. All right, let's move on to Mega slash Z
Mega,
moves Big Gay.
big gay. Disagree on the mega part. I'm kind of indifferent to Z moves, but I think megas make the game really fun.
Yeah. So one thing I noted on this team is he he really wanted to abuse Z conversion and Z celebration until he found out they were banned. So that's
Yeah,
gonna
that's
be
kind of a yikes.
that's unfortunate. Um,
Um,
but at the same
I
time,
don't
it's
feel
like,
bad because it was in the rules,
oh yeah,
so should have read the rules. But I mean, his team is still good without that.
I think his team is
Um,
garbage outside of tier ones. I think his tier ones are going to carry him to some wins. But I'll straight up say I think his team is garbage outside of tier ones. In my opinion, he has one good pick outside tier ones, and that's Jellison.
that's not. Yeah, I can kind of see that. I think I mean he has good rockers even outside of his tier ones. He doesn't have good removal, but the removal he does have are probably some of the best in roll. So like Zapdos, one of the best defoggers, Tentacruel, one of the best spinners.
Yeah,
So that's not too bad. Tentacruel gives you T spikes as well, which he could use. I think with his team, T spikes are going to be really helpful.
yeah.
Um, One thing that I noticed is that his speed tiers are bad. Like
Oh
his
yeah.
speed tiers are very
Is
bad.
Victini
He
his
doesn't have
fastest?
anything very fast, and his slow mons are not slow enough for Trick Room. Besides the camel,
Yeah. You
he
know,
does have an okay setters, but
I mean,
I
the
don't.
thing is about setters too is like, what do you expect him really to lead with, right? Azelf or maybe like a Porygon Z trying to catch something out, or a Victini trying to catch something out. Like,
Yeah, it's rough. I don't think Zapdos with the Z move was the best pick either. I think Porygon might have liked that more, or even Azelf, or even Sock maybe. I don't know. Zapdos seems like it's going to have to be defensive every time it comes, and if it's not, it's going to just be really hard for him to deal with hazards.
it'll definitely be interesting to see how this team turns out. I gave it
Uh,
a, I actually gave it a B minus because I think it's the tier ones he has may be able to carry him to victory if teams don't prep correctly for it.
yeah, I think Victini is really versatile. The one thing I also noticed that this team has a massive dark weakness. Like Victini,
Hmm. Oh
Azelf,
yeah, yeah.
Jellicent, Dusclops, all of those mons are weak to it. Chansey hates taking knockoffs, and he doesn't have a resist that isn't sock, which is not a
Hmm.
good dark resist. So with that, not a huge fan of this team. I gave this team a C plus.
You might say it sucks. Okay, with that, we're gonna go on to the next one. This is KCC. This is Hoobie's team. I actually really like this team. This is like the one I would say like offense team that I think was drafted pretty well for offense.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite team as well.
Like it's one I think it's gonna be hard to prep for. Look at his like tier one and tier twos, right? Um,
Yeah.
you have to prep every week. Scarf Chomp is a week. It's like a huge threat every single week. Like anytime you see a Garchomp on ladder, you always are saying to yourself, "Well, is that Am I gonna get Continental Crush or not Continental Crushed? What's the? Am I gonna get Ground Zeed or am
Tectonic
I
Rage.
gonna get Devastating Drake or am I gonna get Scarf? It's gonna be one of those three, and each one just destroys everything pretty much. Like if you don't
Yeah,
guess right, you're gonna die.
I really like this team. I think Tapu Koko, Mega Scizor, Garchomp is an insane Fairy Dragon Steel core,
Hmm.
especially since Garchomp and Mega Scizor are both quad weak, but Mega Scizor is more than happy to take an HP Ice, and Garchomp is more than happy to take an HP Fire. And having a Mon that can have Fire and Ice coverage is pretty rare. It's not the easiest coverage to have.
Hmm.
So I think those two complement each other very well. Um, I will say ground is going to be a strong typing against this team.
Oh yeah.
I think that there is a pretty heavy weakness to ground here and not a real significant resist besides the levitating or flying mons. The other criticism I have is that I don't think his tier fives are ever going to come.
Yeah. No.
I just
Exactly.
don't think
Yep.
there's ever a reason to bring those mons unless they have some sort of like magical matchup. But I think there might have been some tier fives that you could have picked up that would have at least prompted more prep. Um, but like when you're going and criticizing somebody's tier fives, that's how you know it's a good team.
Yeah.
Because I just don't really have anything
No.
too
Exactly.
bad to say about everything
This
else.
team is gonna be really scary to prep for. I gave this team an A minus.
I give this team an A.
Okay.
This is my highest rated team. I think he might be a bit too physical. Like his attackers might be majority physical attackers here, but there are a few special attackers that you'd still have to prep for. So it's not like it's a draft disadvantage.
Yep. All right. Well, let's go on to the best team. Sorry, my team. Yeah, my team. I'll go ahead and say what I was thinking while drafting. I wanted that core I got after I got Heatran of the Heatran Toxapex Tangrowth. It's just a core where it's like I play with that core a lot. It's on OU ladder, and I know it can just kind of wall a lot of teams. Just being able to pivot out into a lot of stuff. And then from there, I kind of just filled in things I wanted. I like going decently offensive with picks like Tornadus Eye, Hoopa, Vikavolt, Mega Lopunny. Some things I know that are straight up weaknesses. Um, I'm pretty scared of electric types overall, especially like the types that can also threaten my Crocodile. He's my only real switch in besides for Tangrowth, but again, a lot of those mons that carry Thunderbolt also carry things like Ice Beam and stuff. I'm also pretty hazard weak. My main removers are Tornado. Tornadus is my main defog user just in general. I have Red and Frost as well, but that's more of a situational pick. Um, but besides that, I still really like how my team was constructed, and I'm happy with my draft.
I have a few points about your team. I think your team is definitely the most interesting. I don't know if it's good or bad yet. I do know a few things that are like major holes. I think this is the second Monolose to Mamoswine
Oh
team
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
because Heatran Toxapex died to Earthquake and everything else dies to Icicle Crash or Ice Shard even. So that's kind of rough. The combo of ground ice coverage is pretty apparent against your team. Your rockers are good. I think that Heatran's a great rocker. Crocodile running rocks is fine, and even Ferroseed as a rocker or Spiker is good. I
Mm-hmm.
think Toxapex setting up T spikes is disgusting. I think that's a really good part of your team. I think your removal, like you said, is terrible because Torn Eye. It's priority defog, which is really nice, but it's also like Torn doesn't want to run defog, and the other one is Rotom Frost, and I
Yeah.
don't I don't
How
like
often's
Rotom
that gonna?
Frost.
How
Yeah,
often that's
it's
gonna
a tier
come?
five, so it's good for a tier five, but like
Yeah, I agree.
not the one you're going to want to run defog every week. Speed is a bit weird with this team. Megalopunny is pretty fast, but can't be scarfed. And so, besides that, you're kind of relying on Tornadus Eye and some prankster shenanigans to cover those fast scarf mons, or like even anything above base 100. Not a huge deal though, since your team is pretty bulky. So It's not too scary for Scarf Mons. I think you have really nice pivots into Mega Lopunny, which is what I want to see from a Mega Lopunny team.
Yeah.
Switch in Heatran to take a fire or a rock or any type of attack, and then straight into Mega Lopunny when they try to switch. Same thing with Toxapex, same thing with Tangrowth. I will say I don't know why you drafted Shaman after Tangrowth. I feel like those two have
Yeah, yeah, no,
almost the exact same role.
that's one of the things I kind of talked to a couple people about is I totally forgot Shannon was just mono grass type. Um, it's weird though because like I do think Shaman actually is a really strong tier 3.
Oh yeah, I
So
think so
like
too. I wouldn't be surprised if you traded Tangrowth versus Shaman. I don't know. I wouldn't. I would be fine with either of those. I just don't know why they're on the same team.
yeah, I agree with that. Very fair.
And
Very, very
then
fair.
I don't know how to feel about Z Hoopa. I didn't know Hoopa had such
Oh,
a
I actually so
broken special attack stat, but I know it has so many weaknesses that it
my
feels like it
Hoopa
just
actually is
dies
no longer my
before.
Z. I don't think
Oh,
I
okay.
changed it on here. My Z is Tornadus.
Okay, that's what I would have
Yeah.
suggested. I like that
I switched the
more.
night of because I was like looking at my team. I'm like outside
Yeah.
of you can't you have to run like if I'm bringing Hoopa, there's a good chance it's like Scarf or even like Specs.
Yeah, Scarf, Specs, or Resist Berry are the three things that I would
Yeah.
see on a Hoopa. So that's why I was confused about the Zmon on there, but that's not that makes more sense. And then the last thing I had is that I just think Heatran and Toxapex have anti synergy. I know that Tangrowth covers the ground types, but any ground type with coverage for Tangrowth kind of runs through this team.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because your biggest walls are both weak to ground.
You know, we'll
But
definitely
besides
see
that,
how things turn out. I graded my team actually. I gave it a B
that's fine.
plus. Um,
Yeah, I gave this team a B minus. So
yeah, well, we'll definitely see as things shape up, uh, how things go. I think one last thing I'll say about my team is I have a lot of threats. I feel like people have to prepare for and just like they have to be ready for Z Heatran if I decide to bring it. They have to be ready for just different Lopunny sets I could bring and
I think Vikavolt's criminally underrated.
oh for
So I
sure.
love Vikavolt.
And one thing I was also doing, calcs on Z Hurricane for Tornadus I are actually disgusting.
Yeah.
So I'm be let's just say week one, I don't think there's a single Mon on my opponent's team that lives to Z Hurricane. Not that I'm bringing it, but all right, let's go on the RRS. This is Caleb's team.
Okay.
This look at this team's average attack stat, dude.
Yeah, that's the first thing I wrote down is this team hits on the physical side.
Like his
Because this
lowest,
team's special side is pretty bad.
like I looked at like Azumarill's his lowest attack. That's 100 after you put in huge
Huge
power.
power. Yeah.
And then its lowest is 80, and that's gross.
And that's on his wall. So yeah, I think this team has a pretty physical distribution because the only Mons that have really great special attack are the Mons that already have a better physical
Oh
attack.
yeah,
So besides Mew, which can set up on the special side, you're not really having to worry about bringing an Assault Vest user or something like that against this team,
I guess there's
which
still
is
volley.
a, yeah. I always expect Savali to come as a defensive Mon though, because it
Okay,
already has to run the item for its type. So
yeah, fair enough.
overall, this team only has two rockers, but they're really good rockers, and Nidoqueen and Skarmory. So that's really good. It has T spikes and spikes, so that kind of helps with that too. And then it has really good defoggers. I mean, Skarmory and Mew, great defoggers. Silvally, if it comes, great defogger. So that's pretty good. I don't know how to feel about Mega Bayonet
Yeah, no.
because there's a reason that it's a tier 4 Mega,
So
and I
one,
think it's because it just can't switch into anything.
so one thing I'll say too is like as a team that's kind of prepped against this team a little bit, I really don't know what Mega Bayonet threatens as much outside of like squishy mons. It's just really easy to bring in something that just kind of walls it, and Mega Bayonet can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in exchange for Mega Bayonet, he got Kieran Black, Azu, Mew, Skarmory Core because he had the points for it. So I feel like it's worth it. I just I don't know what that mon specifically does. I feel like he could surprise people with it. I'm just not really sure how to rate that.
Remember one time Wolfie won a VGC regional with Mega Bayonet. Fun fact. I mean, it's
Interesting.
not singles, but
Yeah, I think it's better in doubles too with Prankster.
one thing
I
I'm
think
really
that thing just mono loses to dark types though.
one thing I'm
Is
really scared about is freaking the Zeraora. That thing
yeah, Caesar
hurts.
Auras. This team has the best Z users in the league.
Oh
Z,
yeah,
Kieran Black, and
oh
Caesar
yeah.
Aura are monsters,
The only
and
downside is you
one
can't
is
bring
really
both.
fast, and one will one shot your entire team with Z freeze shock. So that's another good thing. I think that I looked at this team's speed tiers, and they're really bad. He has a really fast mon, so that's really good. You don't want to scarf Zeraora though in general, so chances are you're going to have trouble with scarfers above base 100 since it jumps from 143 to 100.
Uh huh.
So pretty huge gap there, and nothing really slow enough to abuse Trick Room. So
Yeah. I gave this
um,
team. I gave this team a B. I think it has two mons that can just straight up KO half the other team. There's a lot of threats on this team.
I gave it an A minus. I think it's really versatile. This will be hard to prep for sure.
All right, let's move on to who's next? Ree. So this Flores team, I believe, right?
Yep,
All right, here we go.
Regal Espeons.
All right, do you want to lead off talking about this
Yeah,
team?
I like this team. Flores sniped me in draft. I wanted Mega Dianthy. Mega Dianthy's so good. Magic Bounce is so good. And in this league, you do not have to Mega on the first turn, so it can keep those crazy defenses that it has pre Mega Evolution if it wants to take an attack before Mega Evolving. You can also run Protect on it if you think your opponent might set up hazards but is also threatening you out, and then you just get free rocks sometimes. Uh, a few stealth rockers, Jirachi, one of the best. Mega Diancie probably doesn't want to run rocks very often, and then I don't think Aurorus comes very often. I will say
There
the
is the ice core which you have to consider each week though,
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think the ice core is useful for tier 5, but I almost think there's never a reason to bring it.
unless you're facing
Unless you're
Christian.
trying to fight a weather battle, but like ice is bad in fighting weather battles,
Yeah,
especially when you don't have the premier setter, which is Alolan Ninetales.
I mean Sandslash does
So
also learn Aurora Veil.
yeah, and it learns Rapid Spin, which is nice. But I don't know. I don't see the Ice Core coming very often. I will say I don't like Chandelure as a Zmon. I 100% think that should have been Zygarde's
Mm-hmm.
Z Crystal to hold because I think Chandelure will always want to come Scarf
Or Sash.
or Shookaberry
Sure.
or
Okay.
Sash. That'd be fine too. But um, yeah, only one Defogger I think in Latios.
Yeah, but Latios is coming every week, and Defog's really standard on Latios.
Yeah,
So
but you don't want to run your Latios as a Z.
fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, Magic Bounce will help, but you have to play really well to avoid rocks all the time. So I think that's kind of a weakness. I mean, Sandslash is a spinner, but not a great spinner. I
One.
think Milotic and Umbreon is disgusting. That might be impossible for some teams to break, honestly. And that's another thing is that you can use competitive on Milotic as opposed to Marvel Scale and get
Yeah.
that +2 boost if you're not paying attention. So
One thing I noticed about this team is, um, I think a lot of the stronger mons are weak to a lot of mons that bring strong dark type moves. And besides for like who are dark resist, right? Mega Dancy and Verzion. You're either
yeah,
switching in Mega Dancy just to take chip, or you're just
you do have to
relying
be
on
careful with the
Verzion really hard.
Virizion though because of Justified.
Oh yeah, no,
You don't
exactly. But it's like
+1.
I feel like this team is going to be relying on Virizion to make those big plays really
That's fair.
often, and
Yeah.
sometimes that may
Yep.
work, and they just may win straight up. But sometimes that may just like cost them the game.
Yeah, I have noticed that with a few teams. A lot of dark weaknesses and not a lot of drafted Darkmons though, right? Like this team has an Umbreon, but that's not a heavy dark hitter. I don't think Weavile is drafted. I
Yeah,
mean, there's like
Weavile was not
Alolan
drafted
Muck
now.
and Crocodile, but there's not that many teams have some strong dark. Hoopa U wasn't drafted, so
So I got two strong dark types.
yeah, some teams do have strong dark types, and I think that will be a big advantage because I've noticed a few dark weaknesses. Overall, I like this draft. I think this draft is very, I don't know, just seems like a Flora draft.
Very, very cute
A
mons,
lot
I
of
will
cute
say.
mons. Yeah, that's what I was
That was on the top of
thinking.
my notes, actually.
Um, except Zygarde 10. That one really doesn't fit.
I mean, it's like shiny dice yet. I was like,
Yeah,
sparkling.
I don't think you can bring shiny Zygarde though. I think it has like restricted sets.
Oh no. All right. Anyway, I give this team a B minus. I think
Yeah,
the team itself pretty good, but there's gonna be weaknesses that are gonna have to be prepped for every single week, and we'll see how that gets handled.
I gave it a B plus. I just like the Fairy Dragon Steel Core on this team.
All right, cool. So Hank's team up now. I will say right now, this is the highest team I had rated. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
I think in terms of one, this is my first draft league. I've done like BGC leagues where we've like been able to bring anything I want. So I kind of know what teams like to bring. I like play a lot of Hearthstone, so I also do a lot of like analysis on what people like to bring. But in terms of threats that can be brought every week, I think Palossand's and Leafeon, I guess, won't be brought. But if you're not prepared to deal with setup users, this team is gonna absolutely destroy you.
Yeah, this team has a lot of setup.
Like you don't have a
I
superior check, you're dead to Leaf Storms. You don't have a Como belly jump check, you just lose. You're not ready for Charizard to Dragon Dance on you, you're done. Like I'm just scared to face this team, honestly.
Yeah, this is another one of those teams that for me has like really high highs, but some weaknesses. I think this team is fat. I think it's going to be hard to deal with Celesteela, Rotom, and then Swampert, Palossand, Charizard X if he wants to run it defensive. All of those mons are kind of hard to deal with because they all cover each other pretty nicely.
What are his hazard users?
He's got three rockers: Swampert, Como, and Palossand. So those are good rockers. I don't think you'll want to bring it on Como very often, but Swampert, sure, and Palossand, if it's coming with rocks. There'd be no reason not to. Four defoggers, that's really good. Some of them aren't great, and then he has Zatu for the magic bounce, so that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I will say his team has good speed tiers, but they're slow. Like his fastest mon is Salazzle, and after that it's Superior, and then after that it drops to base 100.
Yeah.
So unless he's setting up his speed with some of these mons, he's not going to outrun very much, and he might have a tough time dealing with fast mons, but he's got good walls for it.
Yeah. No, I think again, we'll see after a couple weeks how wrong what I am valuing in strong teams is. I think you're putting a lot more emphasis on setup and things like that. And I'm putting a lot more emphasis on how hard team is to prep for and how hard they're going to hit you.
Yeah, that's very fair.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see what ends up happening though. This is again one of those teams I'm really excited to see how it works because I can imagine just a team not prepping for Belly Jump Kamo and then just losing like turn three.
I can definitely see this team 6-0ing some people if they're not ready. I think this team has ridiculous setup potential. I will say I am a huge fan of Mega Charizard X because it can run defensive sets or subsets. And I feel like with this team, it's hard for him to run that because he doesn't have good breakers outside of Mega X and Como.
Huh.
There's no other mons that can just come in, click a button, and get a
Yeah,
kill.
that's true. They have to. I guess downside on his team, you just have to set in. I think you're also maybe Sylveon those also like Sylveon and Salazzle are
Yeah,
just like
if you run choice specs on your Sylveon, but then you don't have a support mon for your team, that kind of gets rough as well.
yeah.
I don't know.
Let's see. So what did you give this team?
I gave this team an A minus. I think
Uh,
it's really strong.
Sweet. And then the last team we got SYS. What does this stand for?
The Sly Sylveon.
Sly Sylveons. All right. All right.
Team has pretty bad hazard matchup. Only two rockers. Granted, Ferrothorn is a great rocker and can also set up spikes. Um, Only two defoggers, although Mega Bounce on Sableye or Magic Bounce on Sableye is going to help with that. And then it does have a spinner and Hitmontop. So it's removal isn't bad, but its setup It's not great, especially since Mamoswine is one of its rockers. And I've kind of talked about Mamoswine already. I think that thing is going to come Scarf, Bandit, or Life Orb every week, and some teams are just going to get put
Hmm.
down by a Mamoswine.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is there's only three Mons on this team that I think are ever going to kill anything, which are Salmons, Mammoson, and Darmanitan. And it's just,
Those are really good killers, though.
yeah, I guess. I don't know. Just what happens when they bring a water type, though, you know?
Yeah, I think Salamence as a Zmon makes a lot of sense, and its setup potential is nutty. So you
Oh,
always
yeah.
have to prep something for that. I think Mamoswine and Darmanitan are going to punch holes in teams. Because I mean, water types don't take ground moves particularly well unless they have a good secondary typing. And then I think you're forgetting about Primarina, which is the one thing that I'm looking at here as probably the strongest breaker on this team. Primarina specs Primarina or Z move Primarina is so hard to switch into because it has insane coverage.
Yeah, fair enough. All
So
right.
I do think that the breaking is okay on this team. The thing that I don't like as much is the defensive side. I
Yeah.
think the Mega Sableye is great defensively because it's only weak to Fairy, which is crazy strong since there aren't that many good offensive Fairy types.
Especially
I think
people drafted. There's like a lot of teams don't have a fairy.
yeah, exactly. I think Ferrothorn is a really good defensive mon, but in draft it loses a little bit because it's 4 times weak to fire, and fire is coverage that everybody has. Like
Hmm.
there are not that many mons that don't have fire coverage, and those that don't generally just run HP fire. So that's meh. Hitmon top is okay on the fit. Like you can run an assault vest with intimidate, and it can kind of cover both sides. Outside of that, I don't really see a great defensive option for this team, especially with Ninetales putting up the sun.
I mean, there's Ferrothorn. I don't know.
Yeah,
Ferrothorn
I
can
also
do a
don't like
lot.
the Ninetales pick. I don't know how the sun fits on this team unless you're going to use Ninetales Darman,
I think
in
that
which case
was.
that's kind of scary, but it also just makes fire moves better against your team, which is already not.
I think that was just kind of picked up because I think having a good, reliable weather setter is gonna be strong versus Christian.
That's fair, yeah. Kind of it'll make the sand team harder, but there really aren't that many weather setting teams. I guess it's a good switch into tails as well. If they try and go for Veil, they just fail, and then you hit them with a fire move for free.
We'll see. I give this team a C plus. I think there's some strengths, but it's one of those teams again that has to prove something to me before I think it's actually good.
This team is weird, but I have faith in a lot of the picks, so I gave it a B.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's fair enough. So with that, that is all of our teams. It's been really to see how the standings turn out. Have we decided how playoffs is going to be? Are we going to do top six like NA
I
LCS
think we're
style?
gonna do top eight.
Top
I
eight,
think it'll be
okay.
more fun if the more people we have in playoffs.
All right, I'm super excited. And just so people know, I think you're allowed to trade after week one, right? And
Yeah,
then
so you are allowed to whenever you make a transaction, so either a free agent trade where you pick up a mon that hasn't been drafted, you can do up to 3 of those, or you can have as many trades with other teams as you'd like. There's no restrictions on that. Those will stop at week 8. So the end of week 7 is the last chance you'll have to make trades. After that, your roster will be locked. And then trades go into effect the following week. So if you made a trade now, it would go into effect for week 2.
all right. All right, guys. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let's have a good week.